All right, welcome back, everybody, to the weekly SKTLs community/volunteer call, along with Cody Willard, Dan Geraci, Sanatsi, and Joe. We have a special guest this week, Jeff Ganley, who I've been told is a Space Force badass, who we will hear from in a little bit. But we are glad to have Jeff with us today. Excited to hear what he has to say. And yeah, I believe we're going to start off with Sanatsi taking the floor for a little bit, and then we'll get into the rest of the call.
Yeah, so Nazi had some questions about how do we get more people involved with the SKTLs, purchasing, selling, buying, the community itself. So Sanatsi, why did you frame it, and then we'll address it.
Yeah, framing it is easy. Joe and I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right after our call, and he noticed some patterns when he looked at the token SKTL token holders, and I had made a similar observation much earlier, like 5 or 6 months after we did the airdrop. So let me give you some numbers, and let me post it actually. Here we go. So that Cabana, if you want to
Share screen.
share it, I can
You
share
have to
my.
click present at the bottom there, Sanatsi.
Oh, okay.
It's on
let-
you, not Cabana. Don't blame
Oh, okay.
Cabana.
I got it. Got it. Give me 1 sec. Let me open.
I'm ready to share. I mean, I see the comment, but it'd be a better presentation to, I guess, share a screen.
Yes. So let me actually give me then. Well, I'll just present the numbers. I was going to go to the actual website, but this will do. And let me do share. Where is the sharing at the bottom of the
Present.
present? Sorry. Here we go. Share screen. Share.
Never thought about the fact that present and present are spelled the exact same way. Till right now.
We're about to get
Oh, I got. Sorry, Google Chrome would like
weren't
to
an English
report this
major at
computer
UNM,
screen. Oh,
Now, if we could just get people to realize the difference between lose and loose, we would all be
Yeah, loose and lose.
all right. Wait
You
a second.
lose an
So this
arrow,
is
but you can't lose your wallet.
We lose the game, and I lose my wallet.
Yeah,
Yeah, lose.
one of my big giant pet peeves. Anyway,
about breathe and
okay. I'm
You know,
breath.
trying
one of
to
my
pick.
big giant
This
pet
is-
peeves is when someone says they've got a big giant pet peeve, because by definition, a pet peeve should not be big and giant.
Okay, here we go. Entire
Sorry, Joe.
screen. Let me do
My bad.
share.
Don't worry, Jeff. This is normal.
Jeff has watched a few of these. He knows. He knows.
I absolutely
Sorry.
have, and I've known
Come on.
Cody here for a little while, so none of this is
Yeah.
new,
Yeah.
Okay.
but
good.
always entertaining.
this
I
is
appreciate
what
that.
people who aren't badasses. This is what we do. If you're-
Hey, Cabana, why don't you just grab the
No, this is driving me nuts because now I have to open system preferences and
Yeah,
I
I
have
know.
to give.
I've never been
All
able-
right.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just let it go. Cabana, just grab the quote that he
I'll
put
throw it
there.
in the comments and then I'll post it.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah, sorry about this.
It's all right. We pivot. That's what we do. Okay. So
Beautiful.
walk us through what this says.
Yeah, so Joe and I looked at the numbers, and I put down the token holders. First of all, we have 2,598 token holders, and the token holder number 50 has 47,734 SKTLs, and token holder number 100 has 35,822, and the 102nd token holder has exactly, it's 35,723. So from starting with 103 all the way to the 2,598, everyone has basically 35,701 plus, some change SKTLs. So
And that was the drop.
exactly that 35,701 SKTLs is basically what everyone got received during the airdrop. So up to this day, we have 102 people who either transacted or at least claimed their reward tokens. I don't think we can make the I don't think we can distinguish, just the reward, receivers. So, and Joe and I, we talked about this, and it's not that we really got too complacent or anything like that, but still, there's some complacency, but I don't think it's at an alarming level like the Daniel or Wayne and then others, used to at least join the calls. We no longer have basically as many participants as we used to in these meetings. So Cody's efforts definitely paid off clearly, because we have, more than the people who originally participated in when we were actually developing the token. We used to have 30, 25, 30 people joining the calls at various times. So Cody's definitely, as I said, efforts helped, and some more people created accounts, because some people definitely sold all of their initial airdrop tokens. But in time, we increased the total number of basically token holders. So it's not horrible or really bad, but what can we do? Basically, the question is, what can we do to increase the number of people who are actually actively doing something, with our token?
I appreciate you bringing it up, Sanatsi. It's a great point. Let me just sort of repeat sort of what these numbers are saying, so everybody sort of owns. So we've got 2,598 token holders. The number 50th largest token holder has accumulated 47,000. I think I'm like number 3 or 4 largest token holder before we just gave those rewards to the space debris cleaning companies, who each received like more than 2 million each. I personally own more than 1 million tokens. So I'm probably like number 7 or 8 out of all, including those companies now, out of all the token holders. But you go all the way down to 103rd on the list, and it is from there through 2,598. All of them own exactly 35,701 tokens, which is what they received on the airdrop for free. The biggest problem that we have the biggest barrier we have to getting more people involved with our cryptocurrency is how difficult it is to buy. We've hoped and still do hope and believe that a year from now, we always thought it would be 2 to 3 or so years before we would be on some exchanges, Coinbase, Binance. Those would be the biggest ones, but even smaller ones our tokens are not available there. If the average person like Greg Amirati, who's a volunteer here now for the last 3, 4, 5 months, great dude. He's a space industry and software industry legend guy. He's brilliant. He has asked me for 6 weeks to help him buy SKTL tokens. And we've never gotten on a Zoom call together because we're both busy, and we talk on once a week on a Zoom call, but we're with Dan Geraci and we never get around to doing it. But that is a great example of, it is a person who is a space enthusiast, whose kids and grandkids love crypto, and he wants to buy SKTLs for his grandkids and kids to like have forever. And he doesn't know how. And in order to walk through everybody, how you buy SKTL tokens is you have to use a cryptocurrency like Ethereum that already exists. And then you go to pancakeswap.finance inside of your MetaMask or other wallet that holds your cryptocurrency. And then you trade your Ethereum for SKTL tokens. But it's not even that easy. You also have to paste in the token address code. What is
Contracted
Contract code. The number that's, it's this long 80 something long
account number 42 digits.
42 digits. And so
42,
you have to put
hex.
that into Pancake Swap for it to even know. There you go. That OXD stuff. You have to put that in there and introduce your personal Pancake Swap browser to that code. And then it's like, oh, that's the Skydle token. No problem. You want to trade Ethereum for that? Bam, you can do it. But there's some steps to get there. It's always been too hard for the average crypto schmo, much less the non-crypto schmo, to buy these tokens. I think, Sanatsi, this is a great idea for us to work on. Maybe not today, because we've got Jeff here to present some stuff about space debris mitigation, some ideas he's got, and today we'll do that. But what do you guys say next week? Let's spend, I'll even before the call, I'll spend some time making a YouTube video that I'll literally go through and show people how. I'll get Greg on the phone maybe, or I'll go to my cousin or something who doesn't own. I'll get someone who doesn't own Skydle tokens yet. We will go through and make a video that walks people through step by step how you can trade your Ethereum or your Binance token for a Skydle token, for Skydle tokens, because obviously you've got one Ethereum which is going for what right now, $2,700 or something.
Oh, 1,800, something like that.
Yeah, 1,900, and the Skydle token's going for 7 cents. So you get thousands of Skydle tokens for every Ethereum. But like that's what we'll do. We will show everyone how to do it. Sanatsi, I truly do believe that if we continue to channel energy in a virtuous, ethical, hardworking manner that helps clean up space debris and fund companies that are going to clean up space debris, if we help enable the space revolution with a cryptocurrency like Skydle, which other than Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency on the planet that is in no way, shape, or form a security, because there were no founder tokens and no rewards for people who helped build it. We did this completely as volunteers. That makes it a non-security. It is a cryptocurrency that exists now like a security, but I still believe in, like we're going to see when the crappy, stupid, fraudulent cryptocurrencies collapse, or the exchanges, or anything that goes wrong, the SEC shows up and saves the day, and they're going to keep doing that. There are going to be lots of cryptocurrencies going to zero. 2 years from now, Skydles, I do believe, will be traded on Coinbase. You'll be able to take $1,000 of U.S. currency, send it to a Coinbase account, and be able to buy the Skydle tokens. In the meantime, and in order to help facilitate the demand from Coinbase to eventually want our token, we need to help people figure out how to buy the tokens easier. And I will do that. I'll help. We'll do it. We'll get a video put together. We'll put a new page on the website that walks through everything. And I'm going to get Greg Ammo. I hope you're watching out there right now, Ammo. And I am going to get on the phone with you in the next 4 or 5 days, and we're going to get you. He wants to buy thousands of dollars worth of the tokens himself for his grandkids. Like, that'll be 5 or 6 new out of, instead of it being 2,598 token holders, it'll be 2,605 after I help him. So we'll do that, Sanatsi. Don't worry. It is too hard to buy this stuff right now, but we'll get it easier. We'll facilitate, and eventually there will be exchanges that'll just allow you to do it. If we do the right job, if we help space companies figure out how to clean up space debris, we're going to be fine. Any questions or comments? Anybody want to throw anything in?
I'd like to thank Joe Anderson, who's online, really for bringing this up again, with me, and we talked about it for half an hour actually on the phone 2 weeks ago. So thank you, Joe.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to, like we all do, we want to see it succeed, and we want to get as many people involved as possible to just generate excitement and let people see all the good things that we're doing. So, anything that we can do to try and, get people in easier, and even if they're selling or buying or whatever, just some interaction to get things moving and show people how it works. I'm all for it. So it's all good.
Appreciate it. From the beginning, it's incredibly flattering the amount of time and energy from the quality of people like you guys have been for a year now. We've been doing this for a year and 2 months, year and 5 months. It's like 18 months or something that we have been working on Skydle tokens once a week together. And it's amazing. I thank you guys all again. Thank you so much. You guys are badasses in your own right.
I do have an idea for how to possibly eliminate some steps and make it at least a little. There's going to be multiple steps no matter what, but I'll, I don't want to take Jeff's time away, but I'll send that offline and,
Cabana, let's next week's call. Everybody watching, tune in next week. If you're curious about how to buy the token, sell your tokens, whatever, we will dedicate more than a half hour. We'll dedicate however much time we need to next week working on engaging with the Skydle token.
Hey, Cabana, as a bit of a segue, because I'm dying to hear what Jeff has to say.
Yes.
I put in the Slack chat, I put 2 links for the Ares, the program office at NASA on debris. I put in the link for this month's update, and then there's the link there as well for the beautiful visual. I just thought it'd be good for people to, if they haven't signed up for it and they want to track what's going on, they should. I just wanted to get that out there before Jeff goes. So
I will put those in the chat. This is the orbital debris link.
Yeah, they're cool. Take a look at them.
So
We'll
that's
talk
that
here.
one.
yeah,
So for reference,
actually, that is a good
Astro
segue.
Materials Research and Exploration Science.
That's a good segue to Jeff. Jeff works at the Space Force. I've met with Jeff over the last, what do you think, Jeff? We met 6 months ago, first time, and I've probably seen you 2 or 3 times since then. We've hung out in Albuquerque at Q Station. He's given a presentation at least once or twice at least to me about his idea, and they're fascinating. He's got a presentation for us today. And Jeff, if you would give yourself a 30-second introductory, since I'm sure you have a better resume than Space Force badass. So if you'll give us a little bit of idea who you are, and then take it away, my friend.
So a technical question, should I share screen? I've got a PDF of some slides. What's the best way to do it?
I think it'd be great if you can. And if
Share
you
it.
can't, email your latest one to me and I'll do it. But if you can figure out better than Sanatsi did on the sharing the screen stuff, we'll be impressed.
Yeah. Present.
Sanatsi is a chief scientist from the biggest, most inventive telecom company in the history of the planet.
I do know what
How to share a
Sanatsi's.
screen.
I know what his issue was though, because it depends upon your browser. And I think if you're using Chrome, it requires you to go into your system preferences and then
Exactly.
approve
Thank you.
permissions and stuff.
No
So if
excuses, Sanatsi. All the thousands of employees you had over the years, I'm sure at some point you said, there is no excuse.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm struggling, honestly.
Just share it with me, Jeff, and I'll do it from my side. Shoot me an email. I might even have you changed it since the last time you emailed?
Yeah, I changed it.
Cool.
It's going to take a minute to send it. Is there an easy way to just share it from the desktop?
Yeah, once you press present, you can share from a tab or which I guess that would be, or a window, I guess, which would be what you would be trying to do.
It's not giving me any options on the window.
You either have a browser tab option, a window, or your entire screen once you go to hit present at the bottom of the.
Yeah, it's kind of locked on the window. Is that sharing? No? Seems to be locked.
Just email it to me, Jeff. I'll do it from
Yeah,
my
I'm working
side.
it.
Then you can focus on your presentation instead of you can be like the guy when Elon's like, next slide, please.
I'm working. Give me a second.
While he's doing that, I've been reading a really cool book series recently, if anybody cares. It's by Dennis Taylor. It's called, well, the first book's called We Are Legion, and it's the in parentheses We Are Bob after it, and it's a whole thing about artificial intelligence, going out into space. A guy wakes up and he gets put into basically a computer and then gets sent out, and there's all kinds of really cool stuff going on, and recreating himself and mining other galaxies for material. And anyway, so just while that's happening, while this is going on.
that's cool. Hold on. I just Googled it. Let me show everybody.
Dennis
Ready for
Taylor,
about-
you said?
Yeah, Dennis E. Taylor. Yeah, it's, the first book's
Okay.
called ER Legion, Legion.
Get ready
no.
for about 100 AI movies.
Yeah.
This is going to be the.
These were written in 2017. I think he started them.
Hey, Cody, I need your email again.
Cody at clwillard.com. Like Cody Lynn.
Okay, it's in the tubes.
I was playing golf with a kid the other day, 20 years old, and his name is Brooks, and his middle name is Bryson. And you get to thinking about the fact that Brooks Koepka hates Bryson DeChambeau. It's a lot of conflict internally with that kid, I think. He's a great golfer. He weighs like 155 pounds. He drives at 320 yards. It's crazy. I did beat him. I couldn't believe it. Usually he used to have to give me 9 strokes front and back, but I beat him outright. It's because he hit like 4 OB on the drives on the back 9.
Refresh, Cody. Refresh.
Are you guys still looking at my screen?
No.
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 No, tell me
share
when
my
you want it
screen?
on.
Stop sharing. I thought I was sharing.
You
Cabana, I
want
was trying
me-
to share the Amazon book.
Oh, okay.
There
I
you
didn't
go.
know you were ready.
Yeah. I was just going to show the book
Oh,
that
you don't have the
Joe was in.
presentation yet?
Did you send it? I
I
didn't
did.
get it.
I did, yeah.
Here, try this email address. I'm not getting it.
Well, check your.
Not there. Here. How about clwillard@gmail, Jeff?
Jeff, are you in Albuquerque?
I am.
Oh, cool. You look familiar. I don't know if I saw you when I used to spend so much time out there.
It's entirely possible. I've been at the labs for a long time.
You guys probably at least saw each other and crossed paths when we were all together at, was it Hyperspace? What was the event that we were all together?
No, there was that for sure.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you were on the panel with Cody, weren't you?
Nah, we just ran around together the whole
Yeah,
time.
I think. Yeah, because I introduced Cody to Gabe and Matt.
Yeah.
That giant lunch.
But that was fun.
Yeah.
So Cody, it is in the tubes, but I don't know how fast.
On the way, I'm
Yeah.
not getting anything. Stop share, present.
Check your spam folder too.
Well, I trade emails with Jeff all the time.
Well,
There it is. I got it, Jeff. No,
Ooh.
that's Matt Taibbi.
very similar names.
Well, I heard an email bonk and I was like, that's got to be it. Hey, look, Jeff and I have been trading emails.
Yeah, so this is coming from my personal account,
Oh.
not my Space Force account. It's a Comcast account.
All right, let's try that. Junk. No. Or spam. Jeff, there you are. That's annoying. All right, can you guys see? Is this it, Jeff? This isn't what it
Yeah,
should look like.
That is all horked up.
Man. I'm gonna try downloading it and opening it.
Yeah. It's all classified. It's all blocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Redacted.
The whole thing. This is, what is that format? ODP?
I didn't send you the PDF, did I?
No.
Which email are you looking at?
They're both there now. It goes to the same inbox. Oh, that one looked all right. Let's see if it works. Hey, Jeff, we're in business. Let's do this.
All right.
There's Jeff. See? Jeff, you need to add as the first bullet point, Space Force Badass.
I will do that. That's my first piece of feedback. So I'll go real fast. Cody and I met, as he said, about 8 months ago now. We've both been interested in talking about orbital debris stuff. He wanted me to talk to this group a little bit about something. It's actually a patent that I filed about 3 months ago now. In terms of me, I'm a small sat guy, have been my whole time at the Air Force Research Labs. Go to the next one. So I think you guys all know this, being part of it with Kessler. One of the interesting pieces of this is Kessler actually wrote his paper in 78. And if you look at that graph in the lower right, there were about 500 satellites in orbit at that point. I grabbed this graph probably 3 months ago, and it's showing 5,000. And the last time I looked, which was this morning, it was at 8,000 active satellites. And so stuff needs to be done in terms of orbital debris mitigation. I don't need to tell this group that. Go to the next one.
No, you really don't. Like, if there's anything you didn't need to tell us, that's the one thing. But no, we totally agree. True.
So if you look at what's happening right now, there's not actually a lot in terms of mitigation. There's a lot of policy stuff going on, which is great. It's changed a lot in my 25-year career. They're getting a lot more strict. There's a lot of tracking going on right now as well. People were hot on lasers for a while. They've kind of given up on those because it was a dumb idea the whole time. And then there's some sweepers and some space tug concepts that are out there. Go to the next one. I think, so just kind of my philosophy, and I'll kind of tie this back in with my concerns for the overall. I'm not trying to present this as like the end all be all, but just something that I think could be part of an important part of the trade space here. But I've always, through my years with the labs, come to the place where you have to have things that make sense technically and make sense business-wise. And one of the concerns that I have with some of the larger space tug stuff that people are talking about is it's technically very complex and it costs a lot of money to get going. And so, are there other ways that you can contribute to the problem without kind of violating Jeff's fundamental 2 rules? Go to the next one. So I'm going to start with an ASAT test to kind of show you the physics and explain where I got to with all this. So typical satellite coming from the left on the slide, going at 7.6 kilometers a second, because that's what it takes to go in LEO. The ASAT, the anti-satellite test, comes from the other direction, basically hits head on-ish. And so you're adding to that 7.6 kilometers per second in terms of the kinetic energy of the impact. And that's a bad thing. The kinetic energy is really the key thing going on there. And if you add to it, you're only making your problem worse. Next slide.
We lost our slide. Thank you, sir.
Stay awake, Cody.
I'm here. Sorry. Mike was trying to distract me.
So it is all about the kinetic energy when you're talking about a satellite. It is traveling at 7.5 kilometers per second. For those of you that don't do metric, you're basically talking about 5-ish, not quite, miles per second is how fast that sucker's traveling. And at that level, you're talking about gigajoules of energy. And it's all, when you look at it, that 1/2 mv squared, it's all in the v squared term. And so if you can come off of that, that's kind of the bottom part of that table, you get better by the square. If you do a dumb ASAT, which is the top line, you're getting worse by the square. And again, we're talking about gigajoules of energy here. Go to the next one. Similarly, because really fundamentally what you're doing here is putting a satellite in orbit is all about kinetic energy. It's the going around the Earth piece. So I just ran kind of a sample. You only need to look at the big numbers. You're basically talking about 6 parts kinetic energy to 1 part potential. So the actual going up to space is only 1. The kinetic energy for things in orbit around the Earth, especially in Leo, is 6. And so if I can come off of that, that's the next set of numbers. I can again come off the launch energy by the square, and that's a good thing for me. Go with the physics, don't fight the physics. Go to the next one. So this is the fundamental approach concept. So do an ASAT, but do it smart. And so you can think about the ASAT picture that I showed you a little while ago as basically a head-on collision, because that's what it is. If instead what you do is you launch the ASAT, which I'll call the catcher, and what you do is you get rear-ended now instead of head-on, you actually solve both of those problems. The kinetic energy of the impact goes down, and depending on how fast you launch the launch vehicle, the kinetic energy that you have to put into the launch vehicle, which is the cost of the launch vehicle, the size and the energy and the fuel, you can make both of those go down. So again, physics is working in your favor both ways. You can adjust that so that basically you come up and do what I'd call a soft catch. So you're close to orbital velocity and it doesn't hit very hard, or you can come up and have that hit harder. It's not a free lunch. And so basically, if you're going to have a soft catch, you got to put more energy into the launch vehicle. If you're going to do a hard catch, you got to basically live with being able to do that catch. Go to the next one. And so these are kind of some examples. The second row is really the sweet spot for this. If you do that and you launch at around 7 kilometers per second, so you have to catch the relative velocity of that impact, that catch is now around 500 meters per second. What happens is that combined system now has what I'll call a very, well, I'll call it a suborbital trajectory. You're taking enough energy out of the orbit that the thing is going to come down, and it's going to come down quick, like within about a quarter of an orbit. And so all you have to do is make the catch, and then the rest of it just happens for you, and you don't have to do anything else. Now, you're not probably going to do that right away because you got to learn some stuff. And so in the beginning, you probably are going to do what I would call a soft catch. You got to put more money into the launch. But again, at that point, the catch is at meters per second. Next slide. And so again, just to give you a sense of this, if I do that soft catch, that's the bottom. You're talking about tens of joules, maybe hundreds of joules of energy. If you're doing it that magic kind of that sweet spot second row, you're talking about megajoules of energy. You're basically talking about something equivalent to like a bullet in terms of the velocity and the energy. That is something that we know how to deal with. Just think of a bulletproof vest. And again, the hypervelocity stuff, I won't show any videos today because of the time, but you're talking about gigajoules. You're talking about essentially unmanageable, or maybe manageable up to like pea-sized things, types of energies involved. And so you're making basically an unsolvable physics problem into a solvable physics problem. Next one. Come on, Cody. Stay with me, buddy.
Cody.
Did we lose Cody?
He's out of the office for a second. He'll run back in.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had a phone call. I just missed it. I took it, and then I said I'll call them later.
Can't give good help anymore.
It was a Washington, D.C. phone call. I didn't know if it was evil or dumb, so I just checked. That's all.
It could have been Dan.
Yeah.
So
he's in DC. I'm just saying that was.
I think the advantages of this type of a system are twofold. First of all, in terms of the complexity, you can look at the various elements. The various pieces of this system have all been done. They've been done many times. And so you end up with a very, I won't say very easy system, but in terms of space stuff, you end up with a space easy system. So it has that advantage. And then the next one, this is actually the last one. The other advantage that you have with this type of a system, if you go with something like a space tug, you're basically in the 100 million range of cost, kind of startup cost. And with this kind of system, you can get down into the tens of millions of startup kinds of costs, which space is expensive and it's hard and everything else, but it kind of gets you that order of magnitude down into kind of affordable sorts of things to get going and make the system go. And that's actually it. I know it was real fast trying to save time. So if there's any questions or comments.
Well, you didn't have to go that crazy fast.
I think this is great, Jeff. And I guess the one thing I think about is dealing with the quantity of debris, especially of any size. So kind of what form does the catcher is the catcher always a craft, or is the catcher does it become more of a sweeper mechanism for large amounts of small debris? Because this whole notion of sneaking up on it from behind, if you will, and just getting enough relative velocity to have everything get swept up at a relatively low impact is, I don't know, I guess that's everybody's ultimate dream, is to just catch everything and get it out of the way. But with this, it's one at a time, is it not?
Yeah, so this is really kind of the key in terms of the process. So basically what you're doing is you're getting in the way of something. You're letting it rear end you. And then if you do a soft catch, which you would normally do, I think, nominally do for something either very large, very complex, or in the beginning, then you've got to have enough delta V still in the tank to then basically do a counter burn and bring that system back in. That's an energy cost. I think that's a cost you're going to have for large stuff. But as you move down in size, so if I've got something like a bolt, which is enough to completely take out the station, but I really don't want to send a $300 million orbital tug just to go get a bolt. You have the option with this system to basically up that speed, because it isn't going to be that hard for me to deal with the energy in the bolt. And basically I can launch it at, say, 3 or 4 kilometers per second, let that bolt hit the catcher hard. But again, it's just a bolt. And if I take that down to the extreme, and I'm talking about kind of millimeter class stuff, I'm not going to be able to do that and clean up all of space. I would argue that no one ever will, because honestly, it's just too big. But if I've got, some millimeter sized debris that's somewhere, and I'd like to clean out the path, say ahead of the station or something like that, then I can launch that at very low velocity and just do something like a foam and just sweep out that path.
Yeah, because when I think about it, and when you look at it, I always think of, how planets form and the fact that they clean out an orbit by catching everything in their path and clearing out an orbit. And it brings up that whole idea of, the foam or some large enough object that it can absorb most of what is in its way. But I think the tug approach is a bit of I think it's a bit overdone in terms of anything other than something big enough that it needs to be grappled and moved, as opposed to retrieved in a much smaller sense. It's such a challenge, but I love this. I love this whole idea of the catcher, though. This is interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the place that I've come to in this is, this is our industry. Space is truly hard. And so you are not going to get a free lunch on this. You're not going to put gigajoules of energy into getting a satellite into orbit and then somehow magically just take care of it. You can try to minimize that cost, but I kind of think of the laser people in that sense. Oh, we're just going to shoot some lasers and this is all going to work out. No, the physics is just not going to allow it. And so this is going to cost money, and it's going to cost money on the order of what it took for you to get it up there to get it back. Now, the caveat to all of that in my mind is, when, and I think it is when, we have folks living in orbit and we have think a sci-fi anything, right? When all of that happens, I think all that can change. But at my age, I don't think that's going to happen I know that's not going to happen in my professional lifetime, and it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime. Maybe I'll see it before I die. And so the issue becomes, what are you going to do until then? Because I like the tug concept in that paradigm, but until we get to that paradigm, it's going to be a struggle.
How about the kick the can down the road approach, which basically somewhat what we've done with waste or garbage on Earth, of being able to gather as much debris as possible, and rather than either try to bring it down or deorbit it or burn stuff up, be able to store it or move it, raise the orbit, which is not cheap either, obviously, but raise the orbit and have for lack of a better term, a bit of a landfill without the land or the fill in a much higher orbit, until such time as we have the technology with people living in Leo or Meo to start to do something with that debris in a more meaningful way, which we're experimenting with now. But rather, start filling up some spent upper stages with debris. It's still going to take a lot of energy.
Yeah. So again, I think what that comes back to is a tug can make sense when there's a gas station. Mm-hmm. And we're a ways from the gas station. The other thing that I struggle with is, to me, the tug in GEO from an energy perspective makes just a ton of sense, because the difference between GEO and the graveyard is minuscule in mm-hmm. terms of delta V.
Right.
But if I'm in Leo, the delta V associated with raising and lowering the orbit is one thing, but the delta V associated with inclination changes, and everything is all over the freaking place in terms of inclination. There is a ton of energy there that you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to spend that energy. And so it's really easy in this world to throw stones, because none of them are going to be perfect. And so I'm not trying to say do this and don't do tugs. I'm trying to be very objective about all these are hard and we need to be doing all of them.
Can I make a point that it's easier to throw stones in orbit? Jeff, the question I've got for you is this stuff, you talk about like letting it rear end you. And I'm just curious, I'm not sure it's even relevant to what you're presenting, but do we always send things in orbit around this way, or is it ever possible to go orbit north and south instead of east and west?
So the answer is yes. And so the vast majority of the time we head east, because the spin of the Earth gives us a boost, but not entirely. And so there's
what about once
class
you're in
of satellites.
Space? Once you're in space, can you change directions? But with, obviously you have to have some sort of propulsion, but once you're up going east, could you then send it up north and go into an orbit that changes?
Yes, you can do that on the rocket as well. So the stuff that resupplies the space station goes up and then takes a left and puts it on the rocket. And I can do that on the rocket or the satellite. But I think the easiest way to think of it is travel at, this isn't exactly correct physics-wise, but it's easy to get your head around. Travel 5 miles per second down the highway. and now take a right turn.
Oh, yeah.
And imagine the energy involved. So we call that an inclination change, and it's a ton of energy.
Makes sense.
But there's a bunch of stuff that's going basically east-ish. There's a whole other group of stuff that's going in an orbit we call sun sync in Leo. And then there's a whole other group that's what we would call a polar. And now there's a whole bunch of folks, like Starlink, they're doing planes. And so what they're doing is trying to get a constellation that covers the entire Earth. And so their stuff is all over the place in terms of their inclination.
Yeah, because from Leo, Cody, you're so close to the planet that you can't get coverage. If you go out to Mio, a half dozen satellites will give you coverage of about 95% of the planet. And then of course at Geo, you can see everything with one. So that's the downside of Leo. You need thousands of
How quickly
satellites in Leo.
How quickly does the Earth turn on its axis?
Once a day. That I think.
I know that, but my question is miles per hour.
Is it like
so? I'm pretty sure that the equator is 400 meters a second, isn't it?
Yeah, I think right? Yeah. I was going to say it's like 1,100 miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. So the kick that you'll get at the equator is on that order, 0.5 kilometer a second.
And then if you go up, I guess what I find interesting is if they're not usually low Earth orbiting any satellites north and south, because then you really have debris. You'd have collisions a lot more frequently, correct?
Cody, that's not true.
Okay.
So basically, any constellation in Leo is going to have a fairly serious inclination. So the vast majority of the people on the planet live between plus and minus 60 because it isn't so freaking cold that you can't deal with it.
Plus and minus 60 latitude?
Lat longitude, yep.
Yeah.
And so what people do is they'll do a constellation that is at that inclination. So it doesn't go up over the poles, but it does go fairly seriously north and south. There are other folks, though, like a ton of the NASA stuff. Now, those aren't constellations, but they want to achieve global coverage. And so they are going essentially over the poles. There's a lot of stuff that goes over the poles in Leo.
Okay. All right.
Interesting. It depends what they're trying to accomplish.
To bring this back then to your presentation and the image here on the screen, would it ever make sense to attack some of the space debris from north to south as it's flying around east to west, or vice versa? Is most of the debris going eastward?
It's going to depend on what satellite it is.
And I'm picturing, what about particles of satellites that have been broken apart?
So 2 questions there. So if I am the space station, I believe I'm at about, isn't it about 50 something inclination?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, so say 45 degrees, right? The station is not going around the Earth east to west. It's going around inclined 45 degrees to the equator.
Okay.
So take the Earth, take the equator, go up 45 degrees, draw a circle around the Earth, and that's the station. Now, because the way the Earth is rotating underneath you, you get a very interesting ground track, which is counterintuitive when you first look at it, but it's just that 45-degree inclined circle. If you came at that from the side, you're going to have a very hard time catching it and containing everything. It's kind of, think about like getting T-boned versus getting rear-ended.
I was just going to say T-bone.
Right. That's exactly, I'm glad you said, that's actually sort of what I was picturing was, is there any sense in trying to approach it that way?
But it's
One more
hard
question.
to contain the pieces of getting T-boned. You can in your mind see how you can get rear-ended and contain everything.
Right. The directions keep going. Whereas if you come T-boned, it scatters.
Yep.
So I've heard Elon Musk a couple years ago, talk about the idea that eventually maybe they could send a Starship up that opens its hatch and comes along and sweeps up some of this debris. Would they be going in would they be using your concept of rear ending in that case, or would they be trying to catch it, or would they come? How would this work? Do you have any ideas? Is
Sure.
Is it applicable to your presentation here?
So if fundamentally you're going to have the same set of problems that I just described. So if he opens the bay and he does what I call a soft catch, and the relative velocity is 10 meters per second, it just kind of comes in, then that you can do that. That's fundamentally what I'm proposing as the soft catch. If there's any off-angle component, significant off-angle component, and any significant velocity, it's not going to happen. Like, basically, think of it in these terms. The hypervelocity impact testing that NASA does, and all, the Whipple shields on the space station are designed to handle up to, say, a pea size. So if something the size of a pea or a paint fleck comes and hits the station, and it has defenses, at least in the habitable part, to defend against that. But the energy involved there is gigajoules. The actual materials vaporize, plasmas form. It is an unbelievable amount of energy. And so the exact same thing, if it's of any size, is going to happen to Elon's system, or for that matter, this system. And so as you go through that, you'd have to design it appropriately. So if I do a soft catch, it doesn't have to be much at all. Just kind of grab it. If it's that kind of magic place that I think, or not magic, but the sweet spot for this system, again, if you have like a 500 meter per second delta V, then you do the catch and you do it in line. And basically then that entire piece, you can just dump it in the ocean a quarter of the way around the Earth. That's what's great about this piece. One more piece. People are starting to think, in my view of this world, about millimeter size stuff and worrying about millimeter size stuff. And then they're quickly going, well, we can't take care of the big stuff, so let's try to solve that problem before we worry about the millimeter size stuff. But I'll tell you this, everything that I've seen from aerospace and NASA, the millimeter size stuff is basically evenly distributed. So you've got this swarm of millimeter size stuff that is covering the entire globe of the Earth plus some, and it's going in all different directions. And so other than doing kind of little stuff here and there, imagine trying to sweep with anything. Imagine a broom the size of Rhode Island and how long that would take you to sweep out the entire Earth. And you're never going to get the size of Rhode Island, right? So again, this is a very hard problem. Let's be realistic about what we can and can't do. But like for Elon, right? I think the way he's thinking is, it's not like this stuff is flying around in random directions like they showed in Gravity. Once it's in an orbital plane, it's going to stay there. And so if I'm Elon and I only care about my plane and keeping my plane clean, then I can start to do some sweeping. It's not this simple at all, but think of like sweeping out ahead of my satellites, which is in some ways fundamentally wrong because stuff is coming from everywhere, but fundamentally right in terms of I don't have to get everything.
By the way, Jeff, your original guess was actually pretty accurate. It's a 51.6 degree inclination.
Good guy.
Cody, do we have
Go ahead.
time for one more question?
Please, nobody's. I mean, we got
Okay.
Jeff here, so it's all good.
Yeah. Can you bring up the slides again
Yes, I sure can.
and go like 2 or 3 slides further from where you were at? I think it's like the second or third. Yeah, wait, where is
Up or
the
down?
go down? Down. Okay, right there. Yeah, that one. No, you passed it. There you go. Yeah. So Jeff, in terms, yeah, the title of the slide actually complexity and risk. So in, I think all of looking at, let's look at the rows, because each row represents a stage, if you will. So there is really no risk trade-off, in this matrix. It looks like, even though you have low, medium, uh, every row basically has really, uh, depending on, I guess, whether human life is involved or not, is pretty much, from my perspective, high risk. Um, so the multiple questions. In your opinion, do you really trust the commercial off-the-shelf COTS purchases? Are there actually processes in place to do risk assessment? Like, what do you ask um, these commercial products in terms of, like, increasing the confidence that you have in the rocket, uh, and also like rendezvous stage. It's all like, uh, there's a lot of testing and capture a lot of testing. Most of this stuff involves basically really software testing, right?
Yeah.
So
So let me kind of explain the thought process behind the risk is a tricky word out there because it has different meanings for different people. Let me try to explain what I meant when I was saying this, which is why I said complexity and risk. So the question that I had was comparing it to the space stuff that I've done in the past. Basically, are you trying to do something that no one has ever done before? We call it inventing physics, or just doing something that is pushing the envelope in terms of an overall capability. And so if you look at the launch vehicles fail. But if I'm going and buying one of the Falcon 9s or one of the Electrons, I'm buying fairly high number in terms of the system. And yeah, the rocket might fail, but I'm not trying to do anything new. I'm literally just going and buying the next iteration. For the rendezvous piece, you're basically trying to do an ASAT, but the hard part about doing an ASAT is the closing velocity. That's the hardest part of actually hitting a bullet with a bullet, is how fast you're hitting each other. And by slowing that down, which again, head on is 10 kilometers a second, I can make it anywhere from a kilometer per second down to meters per second. I really, really make that rendezvous problem easier. And if I look at, has it been done? The Russians, the Chinese, the US, and the Indians all did ASAT tests in the last 7-8 years. Successful, first time. And so this is a problem, Patriot missile system. This bullet-on-bullet problem at much higher velocities is something we know how to do. The catcher, again, if you bring the velocity down to a couple of meters per second, it's a soft catch. It's trivial in terms of grabbing it. The 500 meters per second, a bullet travels at a kilometer per second. And so I know how to stop a bullet. It's called a bulletproof vest. It's not a tremendously complex system. So again, I've got a body of physics and engineering and problems, existence proofs that I've done in the past to kind of cover this space. That's how I was kind of defining the table, for better or worse.
okay, that's helpful.
And
Thank
again,
you.
if I compare it to something like the tug, and again, I don't want this to be like bash on tug day, honestly, but as a small satellite guy, as a satellite systems engineer, if I look at a tug I basically, when I look at the numbers in terms of how much delta V I have to carry, how much gas I have to have in the tank, how much capability I have to maneuver, do the final docking, do the grappling, the grabbing, and then moving that thing around. From a systems perspective, it is really, really hard for me to create a satellite with a ton of delta V, a flying gas can. Separately, it is really, really hard for me to make something that can rendezvous with something else. And then the third piece is, it is really, really hard for me to get something that can autonomously dock with something else that isn't made for it. So I've taken 3 very challenging problems and tried to put them onto one satellite. And so from a systems engineering perspective, I'm like, man, that's going to be a hard problem.
And what you're describing are really, aren't they, the 3 elements of orbital prime? At the end of the day, the approach, retrieval, disposition, all of the above, and yeah, to put it all in one thing, it is a really tough hill to climb.
And that's, we're the Space Force, we're AFRL, we have no problem taking on hard problems. Neither does NASA, right? But when you come up against that kind of a set, that's exactly what you do, is you break the problem up, try to solve each of the individual pieces, do the best you can, and then try to put it back together at the end if you can.
Well, and for the really old people on the call, that, if you think back to the Apollo program, that's exactly what Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo did in succession. We learned how to rendezvous and dock before we went to do anything else. I mean, it's all a succession of breaking it up into pieces. And I'm confident we'll come up with a solution, because we've got the brightest people on the planet to do this stuff.
Amen.
I really do. And thank you for your service, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for serving, all of the above. Appreciate your presentation. It's fascinating. I want to share my screen one last time. Wanted to show you guys that really what you need is a broom the size of Lincoln County, New Mexico, where we are sitting right now in the capital of Lincoln County, New Mexico. It is no longer this big, but when we were founded, we were larger than Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island and Vermont combined. Vermont. How do you guys say it out there? What's the proper name? Say Vermont.
Jeez, boy, are you from New Mexico?
You should hear me say insurance.
Holy cow. Yeah, you say insurance?
Insurance.
Oh, God.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you should hear Bryce say fixing to. We're fixing to go home.
Yeah, well, that's different. I mean, I live in Texas now, and that's pretty standard. But I
there you
grew
go.
up in Connecticut. And
When I first moved to New York in 1996, I was cold call. I was a stockbroker. I'd cold call people, and I'd say something like, "Yeah, we're fixing to start buying Snyder Communications," and my colleagues would be like, "What is fixing to? What is fixing to, Cody?" So anyway, we really appreciate you being here.
It's the same way in North Georgia, by the way.
Fixing to.
Yeah, it's a Southern thing.
It's a Southern thing. It is not real English, for the record. Fixing to does not mean I'm about to do something. So peace, love, and happiness. Jeff, thank you for being here. Come back anytime. I know you watch the SKTLs call sometime, but now that everybody knows you, just click on the StreamYard link like you did this time and join us. You're a valuable part of the community. We really appreciate you.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
It was awesome. That is right. That was awesome. Thank you, Jeff. I
always love it when I come on and learn something, like it just blows my mind. So
we've had some incredible, Jeff was here. We've had the guy from space, the guy who was in charge of the Falcon Heavy for years here. We've had some really cool presentations, and it's a neat phone call once a week to be doing this. And Jeff, you nailed it. It was fantastic. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next week, I hope.
Thanks, guys.
All the rest of you guys, same time, same spot, same Twitter follow link next week. Cabana, peace, love. Thank you guys. Dan, Sanatsi.